Good evening. From Winnipeg, I welcome all of you to our 26th episode of webinar about our project funded by Global Affairs Canada titled Charting a Lasting Peace in Myanmar. The audience, you might be wondering why we do webinars. One of the simple reasons is that it allows us to build upon the knowledge. It introduces you with speakers from all over the globe, those who are experts, policymakers, researchers on this topic. Our webinar library is quite rich. If you want, you can check us out at YouTube in our channel, which has over 6,500 subscribers. So, with this bit of introduction, dear audience, let me get into the topic today. And before doing that, let me also do the treaty recognition. This institute is based on the original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the original land of Metis people. We all are treaty people, and we all are promise bound to work together in the true spirit of reconciliation. Dear audience, our today's title of the talk is Myanmar Foreign Policy, Regional Power Relations, and Regime Survival. We have invited a familiar face who you have met last year, actually the last day of 2025, and he's none other than Brigadier General retired Dr. Shafat Ahmed, who works as a researcher and also in the management team of Foundation for Strategic and Development Studies, in short FSDS, in Dhaka, Bangladesh. We have a memorandum of understanding with FSDS, and we collaborate jointly in research and other activities. The audience, we are also very proud to have with us Felix Haas, our core team members from Myanmar, David Gerald Newman, our founder advisor, and our core team member, Dr. Ernest Thyssen, founder of Smart Shuttle, which is part of the things that we promote in this project. The audience, before I welcome Dr. Shafat to speak on the topic, let me give you a very brief context to what is happening in Myanmar. Myanmar has undergone quite a bit of change in the past couple of months. As you might recall, there was an election. Although the election is heavily contested in this part of the world, almost all of the observers, there was no observers on the ground per se, but remotely, many said that it's a sham election by junta government, and nothing substantial will be changed in the lot of Myanmar people. However, there was an election. And we don't know what is going to happen next in terms of junta government, whether they would be sticking to the power even more years. We don't know. Another quite big development I would like to share with you with regards to the armed conflict. As you all aware, ethnic armed organizations in Myanmar, there are as good as 23 to 25. They had been fighting with People's Defense Force, the resistance forces that came up into existence after 2021 coup d'etat, since October 2023. And some of them actually gained spectacular advance against the Myanmar military. For example, Arakan Army, which controls almost 70% of the territory of Rakhine province. However, China's intervention early 2025, and it brokered a peace. And through this peace treaty, what happened is we have seen many of the ethnic armed organizations, especially those who were partners in the Three Brotherhood Alliance, actually handed over some of the territories to junta government. And this is something happened in the past, and it is ongoing. We also know that Arakan Army had stopped their advance towards the south or southern part of the Rakhine as we speak, and they are kind of maintaining a status quo. That gives me to the idea that we are possibly going to see a bit of status quo in terms of armed conflict in Myanmar, especially in the peripheral area, in the near future. There might not be any radical change over the next I would say at least a year. However, we'll wait and see what happens. And on the international front, legal side, justice and accountability, International Court of Justice has already heard the case against the junta government, and this is the first time junta government actually went in person to face the court. And we are going to wait and see what the verdict comes out, because after 5 years of interim order, International Court of Justice just heard the case in full bench. So these are the development happening in this part of the world. And today, Brigadier General Dr. Shafat Ahmed will talk about its foreign policy and regional power relations. And particularly, we are very much interested to listen from his experience about power relations in the region and how it is working out in terms of regime survivability. Because we often forget that this regime has survived actually decades of isolation from the West, and especially from this part of the world, including Bangladesh. So, how it is going to survive in the next years to come, we are going to be very attentive to listen from Shafat, Dr. Shafat. And also, before we let him speak, we would like to say that we are going to listen from him, and then we are going to engage in an informal question and answer session with our full team of the project today. Dear audience, please stick to us with us, and we'll promise that we will hear interesting facts and figures from our speaker and our co-members. Mr. Felix has joined us, and we'll be very eager to listen his comments what is happening on the ground. And we'd like to welcome Mr. Shafat. Sir, go ahead. Floor is yours. You are good to go.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kosa. It's very nice to have you all listening to me. And as you can see, the topic I picked up is foreign policy of Myanmar, is regional power relation and regime survival. Now, very interesting because this particular country is a little unique, unlike any other Westphalian country. And they are not, uh, if you think of that, you can deal with Myanmar like any other country, it's probably going to be you're going to end up in a problem. Myanmar is a little different from others. In the previous webinar, I talked about the Myanmar leadership, their qualities, their characteristics. Today, we look at the Myanmar's foreign policy, how Myanmar is charting itself, is how it's maintaining its relation with neighbors, as well as the other world, other countries and world organizations. So before what I'll do is I'll very briefly go over. I have divided my talk in three parts. In part one, I'll very briefly touch upon the foreign policy environment in any country and the factors that influences foreign policy of a country. And then we'll look into the Myanmar's foreign policy environment, what is the and how they have come from 1948 when they became in January when they became independent. From then till now, very briefly touch upon the various phases of their foreign policy, and then come to the present. And while talking of the present, I'll cover the Asian countries like their neighbors, China, India, Thailand, then Japan, Singapore, and outside Asia, I'll touch upon USA, UE, and as far as Canada, I'll just say what is the present relation that I feel. And finally, a few words about Bangladesh Myanmar relations. So, with that, now coming to the basics, very although that as I said, Myanmar occupies a very paradoxical position in Asian geopolitics. It is simultaneously central as well as marginal. Central due to its location linking South Asia, Southeast Asia, and China's southwestern frontier. On the same time, marginal due to decades of sanction, internal conflict, and political isolation. Now, according to Samuel Huntington, uh, Myanmar lies across the fault lines between three major civilizations: the Buddhists, the Hindus, and the Confucians. Now, like take that taking that into the consideration. Now, these facts, its location has played a great role in formulating Myanmar's foreign policy. Now, generally, what happens? A country's foreign policy is dictated by some external factors as well as internal factors. Among the external factors are the international system, then the balance of power, etc., then the threat environment that exists for that particular country, then alliance or partnership if they have any, then international institutions and norms that plays a role in making foreign policy, and then action of other states if there is direct action between that particular state and any other state that influences the foreign policy. Coming to the internal factors that affects is first the geography of the country, the history, national interest and strategic culture plays a big role. Then political system and the leadership. Then we have the public opinion and domestic groups. They also influence the foreign policy of a country. The internal factor also includes the psychological aspect of the population or the demographics, then the predisposition and preferences of the individual decision makers, who may be an individual or a group of elites. The individual at the apex of the foreign policy making body plays an extremely important role. This individual has to deal with very complex and intricately related information and patterns, which may include beliefs, attitudes, values, experiences, emotions, traits, style, memory of the society or the nation, their conception about their self and others, the personal characteristics of the head of the government or the head of the state may become crucial in understanding foreign policy decisions. And the biggest example is the present US foreign policy. In some cases, culture plays a role in making foreign policy, while similarly, it has been observed lately that religion has also influenced the foreign policy making of a state. Now, coming to Myanmar, Myanmar inherited a geographic location that presented some formidable strategic challenges. The country's leaders understood that they have to reckon with the complexities of the peculiar geostrategic position between India, China, Southeast Asia, and the Indian Ocean while formulating the foreign policy. This fact was highlighted by Prime Minister UNU way back in 1950 in a speech in Parliament. He had said, "Take a glance at the geographical position of Burma at that time, Thailand in the east, China in the north, India in the west. And stretching southward, they had Malaya, Singapore, and so on." So they understood and accordingly they acted. Historically, Burma's relation with China and Thailand had been critical. Starting from 13th century, Chinese had been invading Myanmar, in those is Burma. Chinese incursion into Burma even lately, recent after the communist China occupied, took over power, the Kuomintang or KMT troops occupied part of China. Similarly, uh, there had been rivalry between Burma and Thailand for some time. As a matter of fact, at one stage in the past, the Burmese Burmese king or emperor had occupied Thailand and burned down the city of Bangkok. And that is why even today, in if you ask a Thai people that who are the number one enemy, they will say it is Myanmar, although they maintain a good relation now. Now, at the same time, the US support for the Kuomintang troops in the 50s, the Chinese support for the Burmese Communist Party till late 1980s, and Thailand's support to the ethnic minority refugees have exacerbated the fear of foreign intervention into Burma. These have made a very deep imprint in the minds of the Burmese leaders and elites and created a sense of general fear and indifferent psychosis towards outside world. When Southeast Asian region became a hotspot of the global power politics in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, Burma at that time opted out of any alliance system and kept itself away from all this, the Cold War rivalry. As a matter of fact, Burma looked inward and opted for non-alignment isolationism. By 19, by 1961, the Kuomintang was driven out of Burma. By the end of 1980s, there was radical change in Burma's external environment as China would do support for the Burmese Communist Party. The imposition of sanctions by the Western countries in the aftermath of the brutal handling of the 1988 uprising and non-compliance of the 1990 election by the Myanmar authorities, the external relations further became precarious for Myanmar. During the 90s, however, and subsequently Myanmar's immediate environment became little favorable as China moved towards economic cooperation with Southeast Asian countries, while India also moved to improve its relation with the Eastern countries. They followed the Look East Asia policy. However, because of Western sanctions, overall external foreign policy environment remained extremely challenging. Again, from 2011, after the Myanmar government election took place, and there was a change in the leadership in Myanmar. As a result, the situation improved, and the Western countries took initiative to lift some of the sanctions. And after 2016, when NLD came to power under Aung San Suu Kyi, West almost lifted most of the sanctions. However, again, after 2021 coup, things have changed. So it's been cycle of activities, and so when you can say sort of roller coaster ride for the foreign policy of Myanmar. Internally, it has been seen that factors which affect the internal environment in a state formulation of foreign policy, which are, as I already told you, geography, history, etc. Now, Myanmar, Myanmar has been, in a way, you can say, unlucky or lucky because the internal factors have affected their foreign policy making extremely. From foreign policy formulation aspect, the internal environment in Myanmar can be divided into three periods, you can say. Firstly, the period from independence to 1962. And I'll cover very briefly the role played by Myanmar in world politics up to 1962. And then from 1962 till 2011, you can say, in between little improvement took place during the late 90s, late 80s. But then basically it is a period of isolation under New Win. And then from 2011 to 2016, slight improvement. From 2016, 2011 to 2016, relation had improved with the Western world to a great extent, where the sanctions were lifted mostly. However, after the Rohingya crisis started in the late 16 and 17, 2017, the relation started deteriorating, and with the military coup in 2021, the situation is probably back to what was in the late 60s and 70s. Now, Burma's internal environment, as I said, has been very complex and gloomy. If you look at that way, uh, the overall socio-political situation of Burma was very critical. There were numerous dissident groups initially. A major part of these groups were politically motivated, while there were others who indulged in criminal and anti-social activities. Aung San, the father of the nation of modern Myanmar or Burma, who was assassinated just before Burma got independence, had a very negative impact on the overall political life of Myanmar, Burma. The dissident groups had apprehensions about their future in a Burmese Burmese centered state. Initially, the separatist group along the fringes of border, they opted for independence. As a result, insurgency started. However, with passage of time, these groups have have decided instead of going for independence, they are now demanding autonomy in a federal system. The basic clash between the military and the civilian are that the military believes in a centrality, unitary form of government, whereas the civilian and the French states they prefer to have a federal system of government with as much autonomy as possible. Now, coming to the Myanmar's foreign policy, the core logic of Myanmar's present foreign policy is firstly the regime survival. Their all actions, their foreign policy activities are geared to ensure the survival of the present regime that is there, which is basically the control by the Myanmar Armed Forces, Tatmadaw. Then non-alignment but not neutrality. Uh, they believe in selective engagement. Then sovereignty absolutism, extreme sensitivity to external pressure. We have seen in the strategic culture part that Myanmar is very sensitive to any external intervention. Then to counter dependency strategy, avoid over reliance on any single power. You might say that they are over dependent on China, but I'll talk about that. Then geopolitical rent seeking, leverage location between India, China, and the ASEAN. Even during the democratic opening of between 2011 to 2020, you can say, these factors were very much active. Even during that period, those about a decade or so, they have been the importance of the survival of the military was the prime thing. As a matter of fact, the 2008 constitution established the military as a
I think there must be some issues at the speaker's end, and till he regains control of the Wi-Fi, or the internet, the audience. I just wanted to pick up two important threads that Dr. Shafat was mentioning, and I'd request Mr. Felix to jump in if he can. So we have had, especially in the past couple of months, or let's say years, about regimes, orientation towards more isolationism. So, what do you think, Mr. Felix, has because you live in that part of the world? How Myanmar government actually manages its trade and commerce and GDP growth. I mean, I understand it is low, but still it is managing to hold on to the country. So, according to your observation, how it is happening? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to jump in with a few thoughts on the economy. Um, I should say first of all, I mean maybe the growth rate in Myanmar and compared to growth rates that we see in other parts of the world, Myanmar might not perform that badly. In fact, compared to
Yes.
other regions. Koza, are you just with us?
Yeah, yeah.
I think yeah. Okay, now it just dropped. Okay,
No,
perfect.
no problem. No problem.
Yeah, just for Brigadier General
Yes, sir. Please.
Scott, I was just asked to give a little bit of an overview to sort of economic affairs in
Yeah,
Myanmar and to the security landscape. So just very briefly, I mean, the military has utilized the economy very strongly
that's
for the gains of the institution of the military. So we have a dual exchange rate system that effectively is financing on the military side, is giving basically an additional budget to the armed forces.
Armed forces, correct.
The economy largely is run by various by basic government intervention, approvals of trade. So there is really this sort of micromanagement of the economy at this stage, and what anyone can basically look for is really that this these screws would be a bit loosened on this part, right? Um, Perhaps, I mean, we can go back to Brigadier General, and I can later jump in with a few observations
Okay.
on the security environment as well, and the
Okay.
role of foreign actors.
Okay. As a matter of fact, to add to that, there is a saying that if you want to do business in Myanmar, you must have a general backing you. Without a general's backing, you cannot do any business. As a matter of some of Bangladeshi friends who went to Myanmar after 2011, they tried to establish businesses, and they are told accordingly that try to find a general who can support your case. Okay. Now, so with China, as I said, their relation is, as I said, for China, sees Myanmar as a corridor for the Bay of Bengal, entry to Bay of Bengal, and a buffer on its southwestern frontier. A critical node of this China-Myanmar economic corridor. Now, if you look at it, economically, the Chinese are taking big advantage. And then on the energy sector, China has utilized the pipeline, gas pipeline, oil pipeline. As a matter of fact, yearly they pump in from through this pipeline around 12 million barrel of oil as well as 12 million CFT of gas every year through this pipeline that they have built across Myanmar. And the oil and gas are taken right from the mid island to Kunming and onward for to the refineries. So you can imagine. Now, as far as the security is concerned, China maintains working ties with both ethnic armed group as well as Tatmadaw. As a matter of fact, China has a very big leverage over these ethnic armed groups. This gives Beijing a coercive leverage on Nepal, as my friend Felix would bear me out. So China's view, whereas on the other hand, Myanmar's view of China is essential partner but deeply distrusted, and they have fear of economic domination, support for the insurgents, as well as loss of strategic autonomy. But at the same time, Myanmar knows that unless they give that leverage to China, Myanmar will face problem in the outside world. Now, coming to India, uh, India's relation is sort of unrealized strategic convergence. Now, if you look at it, India's stake in Myanmar basically is they want Myanmar's help in maintaining security in the and a connectivity for their Act East policy. And
So we can't hear you though, Dr. Shafat. Um, Maybe your Wi-Fi is again having some issues.
they are the
Yeah, I think he's having some trouble in connections. Felix, do you want to continue your comments? Go ahead, Felix.
Yeah, of course. Perhaps, I mean, on the China aspect, I can add a few points. First of all, I think a lot is being simplified in media and in analysis on the role that China has played in Myanmar. The simplification is basically that China has brokered all the ceasefires, in fact, in the country, which is not the case, because in fact, I mean, 13 strategic towns and locations have been, in fact, regained by the Tamador over the last year. and only three of these locations, in fact, have directly been effectively been handed over back to the military based on immediate Chinese pressure, which is basically the biggest case is basically Lashio, the town in northern Shan state. So we overstate sometimes the role of the ceasefires, but one of the dynamics that clearly stands out that has really influenced the security landscape in Myanmar is basically this arms embargo that China has in fact imposed on the ethnic armed groups at the not only China Myanmar border but on any armed groups. So there's no arms flow, there are no arms deliveries anymore from the armed groups at the China Myanmar border, especially the United Wa State Army. And that really has an impact that really 10 additional basically, I mean, to basically I mean, to combat, in fact, I mean, 10 additional areas have been gained, including, I mean, or basically been stabilized by the Tamador, including very difficult terrain. So we have this situation that actually, I mean, from a military dynamic perspective, the Tamador has been on the basically has been gaining. And one small aspect that I would like as a last point before we go back, I mean, that I would like to highlight is we need to look at this trigger event, the 2025, and basically, I mean, it was a staged election, three-phase election. The election was, of course, the big event, in fact, that the opposition groups were, in fact, gearing towards. But if you look at the number of incidents in each of the phases, in fact, and there had been 32 incidents in the first phase of the election, 9 in the second, and 7 in the last one. We didn't see this sort of all-out revolution and all at this major event. So from any perspective, I mean, we can see the interrelation between what China has put out as a policy, but we see how it really has translated into a certain weakness of the opposition in actual terms during this major event, the election. So that maybe just to complement the China side and that relation side.
Thank you. Dr. Shafat, yeah, you can continue, sir, because we lost you
Okay,
in
thank
between.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This time I don't know why it's happening so. Okay, now
No.
coming to India. Now, if you look at it, Myanmar-India relation has not been what could have been, because they are a good prospect. The relation could have been very cordial, but somehow that it has not developed as it could be. Somehow that there was a difference of opinion among the people of Myanmar and people of India. What happened is this: the Indians were really shocked when the Burmese government decided to oust the Indian and Pakistani businessmen and people from Burma in the mid 60s. And that had affected the relationship to some extent. And during the military period, the Nehru period, the relationship deteriorated. As a matter of fact, the initial days in 50s, the relationship with India and Burma was very good. As a matter of fact, the non-aligned movement started by both India and Myanmar. Burma was part of it. Bandung Conference, they jointly organized. So all these activities, Burma was part of that non-alignment group. As a matter of fact, a leading figure. As a matter of fact,
Dr. Shafat, again, possibly some issues.
net problem.
Okay. Yeah, go, sir, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm okay. So, but if you look at the India Myanmar relations, is a summary of the strategic compatibility exists between them, but institutional and political inertia restrict results, because both Kaladan project as well as the road linking India to Thailand via Myanmar has not developed. As well, these projects were supposed to finish by the early part of the 2000. I think Kaladan project was supposed to be completed by 2004 or 2005. Project could not be completed. Although the Indian portion and Thai portion has been completed, but the inside Myanmar, the Indians could not work as per their schedule. So it was hard in Indian side about the both the projects. However, so with as far as India is concerned, India-Myanmar relation is, as I said, it is cordial, compatible, but then they have been it could have been much better. Now coming to Thailand, India, the Myanmar Thailand relation, this very as of now, this relation is based on mutual non-interference and not on strategic vision, because Thailand is very allergic to some extent to of the Myanmar military, but yet relation so that it is there they are not disturbing them, and they are not concerned about ideology, but very pragmatic and ensures that their border remains stable. So they ensures that their border remains stable. So they maintain the border stability is one of the major concern of the Thai land. So they ensure that they do not disturb the administration in Myanmar. As a matter of fact, the ASEAN policy is non-interference, and that allows Myanmar to chart their own way, because none of the ASEAN countries interfere in the internal affairs of Myanmar. And on the Thai side,
I think we are having trouble from Dr. Shafaz and uh,
do you hear me?
oh, he's back. Can you
Can you
hear
hear
us,
me
sir?
now?
Yeah, right now, sir, we
Okay,
can
fine.
hear. But
Yes,
I think, yeah, we can wrap up, sir, because your net is
okay, okay.
having trouble, sir, today.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't, it's giving in my laptop. It's giving 100% coverage, but I don't know. But I just touch on the few others.
Yeah.
First is with the Japan, they have a very interesting relationship. As a matter of fact, probably the best relationship other than China is with Japan that Myanmar maintains. Japan remains Myanmar's best potential long-term partner, but influence is constrained due to regime legitimacy issues. They have not. Japan has not stopped their projects. They are continuing with it, but then they maintain probably is not as cordial as they were during Suchi's period. Now coming to the West. Interestingly, first is the Myanmar remains Japan's closest ally.
I think we have to wait again. Um, Apology, the audience, for these.
Relations started improving, and once the elections took place in 2015, when NLD came to power, she visited Washington. Suchi visited Washington, and President Obama visited Myanmar. And okay, so I think as the situation is, I think we should try to close it up. That was all I had to say. In the end, I will say that Myanmar has been basically their foreign policy has been directed for the survival of the regime. That was the main concern.
Thank you,
So,
sir. Thank you
any
so much.
question if you have?
Absolutely. So thank you so much. The audience, we apologize for this little bit of net issues. Nonetheless, we have got the gist of the presentation from Dr. Shafat, and he concluded by saying that Myanmar's foreign policy is equal to regime survival, and this is how this is happening with regards to the external relationship. So let's bring Felix again. Felix, do you want to summarize a bit of the situation now, as you see, with regards to foreign relations of Myanmar with other countries? I mean, of course, because of the fact that you live in that part of the world. And if you want to add new information, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kausa. I would say first of all that I believe we are still in a pre-phase to any change. I don't believe we have yet seen a rebranding of Myanmar. We have not yet seen a really a fundamental change that anyone in the Western world would, for instance, change their policy stance. I mean, we saw that, for instance, manifested for instance, even the U.S. Trump administration, that in fact in the appropriations bill, in fact, I believe yesterday that was passed, basically holding the still stand of government for 4 days in that case, where basically the Burma Act that was passed under the Biden administration was in fact funded with an additional 121 million US dollars. So we see that there's no fundamental shift, and I believe this is the challenge. I mean, we have from the perspective of Naypyidaw to, I mean, as far as I can see it from an external perspective, um, the military has basically, from their perspective, consolidated power. I mean, has regained control over various parts of the country. The national election has been held, and the Union Solidarity and Development Party (USDP), basically the conservative, somewhat military-linked party, has basically won the majority of seats, basically. So, I mean, from the military standpoint, from this political party standpoint, and from the prospect point of view, Naypyidaw might see itself basically in a relatively basically comfortable position at this, and a more comfortable position than where they were 1 year ago when all these things were not had not happened. The state of emergency in the country has also ended since basically 6 months before the held elections. So, I mean, from that is, I believe, I mean, the perspective that we would have from Naypyidaw basically on this situation. How are we now reacting as an international community? I don't think anyone has really. I mean, there's no sort of strategy for a new engagement with Myanmar, with the people of Myanmar. And we are, of course, in this sort of environment in which funding, I mean, for international aid, for engagement is cut globally. I mean, for any area. And with that, I mean, we haven't yet seen Myanmar becoming basically a priority, and there's just no easy way basically for the international community, and no way shown in a way by the government, by other groups, how this can really turn into a new engagement. But I would, in fact, if I may, I mean, I would like to ask one question, because maybe we talked about the Myanmar's foreign relations, and I mean, I would of course be very interested from Mr. Shafat to also hear about his view on the Myanmar-Bangladesh relations over time. I mean, how he has basically observed these basically, and if you would see any sort of potential turning point given the upcoming elections in on the Bangladesh side as well. If how you would see that also from a historic point of view. Uh, you know how we got to where we were, how we got to where we are, and how you see that moving forward. I mean, that would be, of course, my interest, because we looked at the bigger powers around the both Myanmar and Bangladesh, India's interest, China's interest. The question would be, I mean, what Bangladesh's interest, would be, could be, and on the Myanmar side, where you see the key issues at this stage, how they see Bangladesh. Is it all overshadowed by the legal process effectively, or where do you see the entry points basically?
A good question, actually.
Now,
Felix
thank
has
you very much. Now,
Felix
coming to
has stolen my
Bangladesh,
question. Yeah.
Myanmar
Dr. Shafat, we lost you again. So what I was trying to add is that I was just thinking of this question, as Felix has already put it out. We are interested to know from Dr. Shafat what Bangladesh is thinking.
Now, sorry, because Bangladesh, yeah,
Go ahead, sir.
can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can. So go ahead.
Okay. Now, as far as the Bangladesh Myanmar relation, Myanmar uh, was one of the first countries to recognize Bangladesh in 1972. And then initially relations had been, I should say, very cordial and is improving during Zia's period. Although the first exodus took place in 1978, but Myanmar took back all the Rohingyas who had come to Bangladesh in 78 and 79. And similarly, even after in 92, 93, when the Rohingyas came, they went back. But the situation started deteriorating mainly from 2007 onward. 2005, but and then the Asian highway linking was which was supposed to pass through Bangladesh and going from South Cox's Bazar to Myanmar. But when India changed that route, they insisted on shifting the route from instead of Cox's Bazar, they wanted to take it into the northeast area through Assam, Mizoram, and into Myanmar. It is that from that time onward, relations started deteriorating. But as a matter of fact, the Myanmar government has been rather indifferent to Bangladesh. If you look at it, during entire period of Aung San Suu Kyi, she visited all the neighboring countries, India, China, Thailand, Malaysia, Laos, Cambodia, but did not visit Bangladesh. She was offered, she was invited twice. She did not. She kept on delaying and finally did not. Similarly, Myanmar had been maintaining a very low profile in our relationship. Economically, there's been not much flow of goods and services. The main major trade relation between Myanmar is, you can say, through the Yaba business. Other than Yaba business, there's nothing much that transfer between Bangladesh and Myanmar. So Myanmar-Bangladesh relation is virtually a standstill, you can say. As far as the Rohingya crisis is concerned, Felix, you understand, you know it as I know, it is very critical, and the viewpoint of the people in Nepal or in central in the Myanmar is much different, opposite to what we talk and think in Bangladesh. Because to them, Rohingyas are an old dead issue, you can say. For us, it's a question of sort of survival, you can say also. So that is what I'll sum up, that relation between Bangladesh and Myanmar, on paper it is cordial, but it is very ineffective. There's nothing much that happens between Myanmar and Bangladesh.
Thank you, sir. David, you have been
That is all
raising.
I have to say.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Thank you, sir. David, go ahead, sir.
Well, in the news I read today out of Bangladesh, out of Myanmar, through the international news services, is that not only is the election perceived internationally to be a sham and led to a total domination in terms of numbers of seats, 739 of 1,025 seats in the control of the Union Solidarity and Development Party, which is the Junta's party, and the National Unity Party, I gather, which had been in government 62 to 88, was a distant second. Second was 68 seats, and the other seats were split, really scattered, and there's a few ethnic representatives. And there were 57 parties running, and the party that had been successful in 2015 under Aung San Suu Kyi was disbanded, so it won the elections in 2015, 2020, but didn't even participate this time because it was legalized. And the fact that they've now created with that power a union consultative council of 5 members, which is in Reuters said to be a control of over every critical component of national security in the legislature and executive and judicial branches of government. So it looks like there's a strengthening of the control, and if China is going to take advantage of that for its own selfish interests, it looks like the ethnic armed groups are in for a big challenge. I have one question for Felix, and that is, what is the Myanmar think tank Institute for Strategy and Policy? Is that a credible organization? Is there just a government mouthpiece? The name that is cited in the Reuters article is a guy named Nang Min Kont.
Felix, yeah.
Yeah, David. I would personally vouch for that think tank. It's been a think tank that has been in existence, I believe, since 2017-18 or so. So it emerged at that time. I believe they've been monitoring very closely Belt and Road related developments in Myanmar. Published papers on various aspects of also, strategic relations, critical minerals, etc., and the conflict dynamics. So I believe, this really is one of the most credible think tanks that deals with Myanmar. How they are operating at the moment in terms of inside the country, outside the country. I'm not sure, but I would assume that they have a lot of expertise in the country itself also. One should also say, there is not this multitude of think tanks basically that are really sharing credible information. I would count this ISP into the category of the ones that are just trying to inform about the situation and are not basically judging it. So really fulfilling the purpose of the think tank. So that in brief would be my judgment, if I may.
So in terms of Brigadier General's useful presentation, unfortunately interrupted by failures of technology, what really interests me is the geopolitical part of this and the relationship with neighbors. And it just seems to me that it's like the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, at Davos, Switzerland, really, because we have a China next to us called the United States of America, just as Myanmar does, and I'm wondering if now that there's 5 identifiable people who are part of this council with a supreme ruler, the paramount dictator in charge of the military, of course, being in control of it. I just wonder if now there can be an opportunity for some kind of conversation, some kind of communication by the neighbors and the ASEAN group, and is there an opportunity here, Shvat, that might be something that could at least begin a communication. Um, uh, I mean, Canada has a small power compared to the United States, but being its neighbor, uh, certainly has to chose to build middle power allies around the world behind a new approach to the world order, and has also, begun, I think, a more constructive relationship with China and with India, and with the ASEAN region, which has led to this very project being of interest to Canada. I'm just wondering if you weren't able to speak to Canada's role, but is this an opening really for Canada with the strong neighbors, India and China and the ASEAN countries, being capable of putting together some kind of strategy to begin a connection with the new leadership and what they say to begin with, how they open up, how they deal with it, rather than just totally instilling the fear that you've spoken to so wisely in the last session and again today of foreign interference. But if a very carefully thought out strategy was advanced by a country that's not a threat at all, and has already taken a public position nationally, internationally, and that's Canada. Is there some way that you could see Canada playing a role here with the powerful neighbors, including China and India?
Dr. Shafat, do you want to comment? Yeah.
Yes. Yep, yeah, I think you have a point here, Mr. David. Is probably an attempt could be made, but again, the question is, will China take the lead or will India take the lead? Uh, but there's a big question. As a matter of fact, probably Thailand could be utilized. I feel instead of both what do you call China or India, Thailand or Singapore could be used to make an headway to try to talk to the present leadership there. And but they, because probably with Thailand and Singapore, the military have a much better connectivity. Probably, I feel so. But otherwise, whether China or India will take interest, I have doubt.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to respond also to David's, I would say, very brilliant observation. Given the changing geopolitical landscape from Canadians, and especially it was a watershed moment for many of the observers, those who participated in Davos in World Economic Forum last session, when Mike Kearney rightly mentioned about the quote unquote rupture of relationship with the superpowers. And also and I am big fan of this particular line when he cautioned by invoking the image of Václav Havel's consent to power. But this particular line is so brilliantly laid out by Mr. Carney when he said, quote, if you are not on the table, you are on the menu, unquote. So I think this sends a very unique message to middle powers like UK, Australia, France, and others, and many of the European nations, that whether it is time to really, develop a different angle of international relations and relationship in order to achieve your own national goals. And coming to this question that David asked all of us, whether it is time to, rethink relationship with regards to Myanmar conflict, I do think it is an opportunity, and this opportunity must be embraced, must be taken fully from this part of the world to engage China I think too many times we have ignored the roles and influence of China with regards to some of the major conflicts, i.e., Myanmar conflict. And I think if we gear up to engage China constructively and open a dialogue, open because you see, even in our project, two countries are totally absent. We failed to connect both these countries, China and India. We have connected with so many people, so many think tanks and so forth, but we couldn't. And this is why I think it's an opportunity, and we should really find a strategy, develop a strategy how to really commit ourselves towards conflict resolution. Onboarding China and India, both are important players in this area. And um, and in summary, I would only say that David's question is worth pondering upon, and those who are listening or will be listening to this particular episode, do let us know what do you think the pros and cons of engaging China from our part of the world with regards to Myanmar conflict. I would like to also invite now Dr. Ernest, who was so patiently waiting on the wings. Dr. Ernest is the founder of Smart Settle, as you all know, and our core project member. Dr. Ernest, if you have any questions for us.
Well, thanks for inviting me to be here. It's very interesting. Nice to meet you, Dr. Shavat, and you're
Thank
clearly
you.
very knowledgeable about everything that's going on in Myanmar and all around that country. There are, it's clear that there are countries on all sides and even farther away that have an interest in peace in Myanmar. So, I'm part of a project here with CRRIC to chart a lasting peace in Myanmar. And it's our theory that there are benefits in the wings, benefits that are waiting. We only need to facilitate a collaborative dialogue to agree on how to go forward in a peaceful way rather than fighting forever, because that's the only way to lose.
Thank you, Ernest. Dr. Shafat, do you have some closing remarks? We'll close the session after you have some, reflections, because you have heard all of us talking on the same topic for some time. Go ahead, sir.
So thank you very much. Now, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. David for that approach. That is there any way to make a headway into the those leaders of Naypyidaw or Myanmar? It's a very good idea. I think we can try it out. As a matter of fact, as I've told you previously, that there was an attempt by some of the retired officers of Bangladesh to link up with the retired person officers of Myanmar, but some other that failed because of the 2021 coup. But we are progressing slowly, so an attempt should be made. But as the situation now is, slowly and gradually, I think it's not all stick that can solve the problem. I think we need to use carrot also to some extent. There should be a move by the countries, especially now that after the Davos meeting,
In the meantime, the one of the observers of today's webinar, KT underscore Rijwan, has already shared his ideas. Thank you, Mr. Rijwan, for directing us who to contact or who to bring on board with regards to dialogue. Thank you so much for your comments. um, I think we are again having some issues at Dr. Shafat's end. However, if he comes back, it's fine. Otherwise, I would like to take the opportunity to close this session today by thanking all of you, those who have been waiting with us and listening intently for 1 hour past. Thank you, Felix, for joining us, Dr. Ernest and David, for your constructive comments. The audience, we do run quite regularly webinars on various topics, but particularly our current ongoing project, charting a lasting peace in Myanmar. And we are looking forward to new ideas of conflict resolution. And given the changing geopolitics globally, we would like to invite all of you to kindly tune in our future episodes as well. So, with these concluding remarks, thank you once again for being with us, and we'll meet each other again. And I would request my core team member to kindly stay back once we end the stream for a coordination talk. Thank you so much. Have a nice rest of the evening, and evening here and day in Bangladesh, in the eastern part of the world. Bye bye.